Hi guys, and welcome to another Mythical Legends podcast. Today we have an excellent podcast lined up for you. We have a special new co-host, and we have two brilliant guests to discuss a topic which I guarantee every single person in the Bigfoot world will do this. If you don't, then you need to learn more about Bigfoot. Let's bring our co-host on and let's meet him, and then we'll bring our guests on. Please welcome Brian King Sharp.
What's going on,
Hey,
Daniel?
boss.
Hey, everybody.
How are you, mate?
I am hanging in like a hair in a biscuit. How about you?
Yes, mate, I'm very well. Very excited about today's podcast.
I am too. I've never talked to either one of these guys, so I'm excited to get into it and soak up all of their Patterson Gimlin knowledge and talk about some of these amazing images that they've put out recently of the film. We've never seen it before, so.
Yeah, and I've never come across someone other than scientists that has been having a look at this, so I'll be really interested. Let's bring these guys on and let's have an amazing podcast. Let's, first of all, welcome Todd Gatewood and welcome MK Davis. Hey guys, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very, very well. How are you, MK Davis?
I'm good. I've had some incidents. I've slipped on the ice and hit my head, but I'm healing up.
Oh, good. So, guys, let's jump straight in. And I'm going to start with Todd. Mate, I'll ask you, what got you interested into the cryptid world?
Okay, that's a great question, Daniel. I was born in the 60s. So in 67, I was around 5 or 6 years old. And shortly after 67, maybe when the Leonard Nimoy episode came out, where it was on the splash screen or the intro, I believe, of a show. And when I saw it, like everybody, I was instantly captivated. And living in Oklahoma and having neighbors who are Native Americans, talking about it with people who actually have known about it their whole life and are like, oh yeah, that's Bigfoot, he's real. So that was my introduction.
Oh, good, mate. And MK Davis, I'm going to the same question for you.
Like Todd said, that film was shown far and wide. Most people had seen it at the theater or somewhere. But yeah, I really wasn't that captivated by it, but I got involved with it through my astrophotography. I had gotten a telescope and I was taking space photos and so specialized photography. And in the process of doing that, you learn a little bit about films and stuff and how to rescue faint details on space objects. And I saw a couple of frames from the Patterson film that were really clear. And I thought about it for a little bit. I said, it's not possible to get clear frame from the stuff that I've seen. It's all dark and shaky and grainy. I said, there must be a better version. And that's what started me on. I began the inquiry that's lasted till today. It's still going.
So let's jump straight into kind of your work to do with the Patterson Gimlin film then. First of all, let's go right back to the beginning and go with how did you guys get involved with the PG film? How did you get involved with working with these frames?
Go ahead, Todd.
Okay. No one asked me to. It's just been something as computers came out and I was in the evolution of that whole era, that this was always going to be a part of it. And it came out, you'd see pictures of it and so forth. And you'd see clips of it, GIF files of it. And I followed it. I'd save it. I'd see different versions. And just MK and mine's paths are pretty parallel. I saw it and I would see different things and think, there has to be a better version of this, because I'd see one way and one another, or still maybe even a third way. And it just added up over the years to me that something's not right. So I would collect these pictures and try to work on them. And as resolution of computers and programs, digital darkrooms refined, I just stuck with it. I came upon my image through a deep search of computers that were attached to the internet, but not indexed by Google, which led me to a frame by M.K. Davis. I didn't even know. I knew who M.K. was from seeing him on a few shows, like on the national television cable network type circuit. But I didn't know the whole world of Facebook and Bigfoot or YouTube and Bigfoot or any of that existed. And as I started researching it, I got a hold of an image or two from the old days that were leaked out on the web and still a substantial size. And when I started working with him and getting a little traction and good traction, I thought, I have to show someone this. It's beautiful. But I think the person that would be appropriate would be M.K. Davis, this M.K. Davis guy. So I looked him up and contacted him. He was accessible, and that's how it started from me to Bigfoot to getting with MK, because I wanted to say, hey, if this is out there, I think I've noticed a trend in Bigfooters to put work out there from other researchers or people who've studied the film or done work on it, but not give them credit. So I wanted to make sure if I could say his name and all that stuff. And here we are.
Wow. It's an amazing story. That's an amazing kind of journey into the Patterson Gimlin film. Well done, you guys.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Davis, I will ask you the same question.
Like I was telling you about that particular frame, I ended up making some contacts. These were the infancy of the days of the internet, and it was growing by leaps and bounds. Bigfoot stuff was being posted, and I was meeting people, and I got invited to go up to Oregon to give a presentation to the Western Bigfoot Society. At the time, it was the International Bigfoot Society because it had several people from other countries as members. But I went up there and I made contacts with people out of Canada and California. And so it began like that. And people saw what I was doing with the film, and they wanted to help by and large. I didn't have too many people there were a few that didn't want me to. They kept discouraging me, saying, put it down. It's not worth it. But I did get a lot of really good images, and I got also information and made contacts. And so it led me from one thing to another. And you know how it goes. Once you start this process, it's almost never ending. So I ended up meeting Miss Patterson, Roger Patterson's widow. Went to her home. She provided me with 5 transparencies, 4x5 that came off the original. And they were spectacular. So I knew that I was right, that there was a much better version of the film. And you start to ask yourself questions. Why is the film so bad? If they had this to show it and they didn't show it. These would have been real game changers back in 1967. But instead, they showed this dark thing with a silhouette. You couldn't hardly see any surface detail on it or anything like that. It's shaking off. Your mind can't process too well more than one plane of movement. So you got the camera person, he's shaking up and down, and you got the Bigfoot going from left to right. You got the background going from right to left. It's a confusing chaos is what it is. And until you straighten that out and put it through a process where you could stabilize it, then you're not going to tell much about it. And it took a long time to get the images, a long time to do the work. About 2:00 in the morning, one morning, I hit preview, and I was stunned at just how good that film really was. And I've been alone in this, except that recently Todd and I crossed paths, and Todd is really good at what he does. And he's made a tremendous difference, especially in those frames that were already up there in quality. You can turn a good photo into a great photo if you know what you're doing. And he does.
Wow. Tell you what, let's bring this same photo up. Now, this photo, and Brian will completely agree with me here. Brian showed me this, was it Monday? Was this? And I go, oh my God. And I didn't sleep that night. I did not sleep that night, and I'll be absolutely honest with you. Because that photo is incredible. Now, before we go on to that photo, Brian, do you have any questions before we bring up this confusing photo?
Yeah, there's just a couple. One thing that's always been a bone of contention with the film MK, and I've had people on Facebook asking me questions to ask you guys today, and this is one that's come up often, so maybe you can speak to this a little bit, is the frame rate for the Patterson Gimlin film. That's one of the things that people have always used to break this down. People like Meldrum and other people have looked at the anatomy of this thing when it's walking across the sandbar. Can you talk a little bit about the frame rate? And when you started working with the film, one of the questions was, what frame rate did you use to produce what you were producing? Could you talk a little bit about the frame rate and what that means and why people would be asking that question in relation to the PG film?
Yeah, it has a lot to do with the mass of the individual. You can't swing naturally. Your body is designed to conserve energy. And when you swing your arms like this right here, it free falls back to the center, and then you push up, and then it free falls back. And if you're going so fast that it's obvious you're putting out effort to make the arm swing, then you're going too fast. It's biomechanical questions. When you reach, I experimented. The Russians used the up and down motion of the camera person, and they measured what a running person that's tall as Roger Patterson was, what frequency he would go up and down. And it's not absolute, but it'll put you in the ballpark. And I went to the film site, and I was with some Japanese gentlemen, and they were going to shoot a reenactment. And I was going to be the Bigfoot, not wearing a suit or anything, just wearing my clothes. But I did the walk for them. And then when I got the film, they used my camera, so I had the film, and I did a split screen with the original Patterson film, and was very surprised to discover that she outwalked me as far as rhythm and frequency. I said, that can't be, because she's way bigger than me. I had to slow myself down, or either slow her down till we matched. And I slowed her down until we matched speeds. And when it was all said and done, I came out with a frame rate of about slightly less than 16 frames per second. And the Russians came out with 16 frames per second. I'm inclined to think that's the correct speed. And when you run it at 16 frames, you see the free swinging arms. The biomechanics are all smooth. So she is just extremely massive. The carry through and the follow through, the fulcrum, when you make a step and push off with the other leg, you come over a fulcrum. You have to have a lot of mass to go that slow, and they remain smooth like that. So you're talking about, I'll tell you, Jeff Glickman of the North American Science Institute, he was paid $75,000 to examine the film, and he came up with a weight of 1,400 pounds, and everybody just freaked. There's no way that thing weighs that. He says, I'm sorry, it just does. And he gave his reasons for thinking so, and he stuck by it. I came up with the conclusion that it is in excess of 1,000, could be on up to 1,400 pounds. I like to account for the broken land, broken ground, bent knees, and things like that. But she is very massive. And I found a set of tracks out there, trackway on Bluff Creek, and they were 4 inches deep and on ground that I could jump up and down on and hardly put a dent in. I'm pretty sure, just doing calculations, that they're about double per cubic inch of flesh. They're about double the mass of us. So
Wow.
that explains why people say, I shot one, but he didn't go down. He didn't seem to have an effect. If you shoot one, you better shoot him with something big enough, because that's a lot of mass. It's hard to penetrate that kind of mass.
Wow, that's really interesting. And have you ever heard of cases where someone has shot a Bigfoot? Because I've personally never heard of one.
The whole time I've been in it, there have been first one person, then another. In 1924, these miners up on Mount St. Helens volcano, and they're in Washington State, they were attacked. But they were attacked because they had shot one the day before. He went over a cliff, and they couldn't find him, or others had taken him off or something. And then they shot another one. It didn't seem to have any effect. It just blew it off. That's what I was referring to it ballistic wise. It's probably not the answer even for self-preservation. Just make them mad.
Wow. Wow. I think
Really big if you're going to try to save yourself with a gun. The best thing to do is save yourself with some savvy, some knowledge.
yeah. Wow. Well, I will let's get right to the point because I can't wait for it. And guys, I'm gonna bring on this frame, and I would love you to just explain kind of how you've got this point and explain about the frame. Are you guys happy to do that? Yeah.
Sure.
To everyone listening via audio, we're about to bring a frame onto the screen of what Todd and MK have created. Okay, guys, there you go. So, do you just want to explain? Because even looking at it now, it's crazy.
I hear Stevie Wonder, "Isn't she lovely?" every time I say. You can't get a good image from a bad image, and that came from an MK stock and of images. I use Macintosh computers and tools, and upscaling is a beautiful technique. It's not AI. Upscaling is when there may be a pixel. Sure. If there's a pixel missing in a picture, it's surrounded by several pixels. The computer reads what the value of those pixels are and replaces the missing pixel with it. That's not AI. It's just an algorithm we've all come to know, love, and trust. The problem, I think, is recognition. We've all just had blurry images of Patty for so many years. If you see an image of Paul McCartney or the Stones or Elvis, and it's like a home photograph, even if it's blurry and they're not like on stage, your brain will say, "Oh, that's Elvis. That's whoever. That's James Dean." Because their image is burned into our brains, but all we've had burned in is blurry images. So now that you see her, and MK has done a beautiful graphic of it fading in and out of the prior images that have been out there, there's not a detail on this one that you can't find on that one. It's always been there. It's been in plain sight. Another thing we can talk about is Bruce Bonney. He saw it, and when I read those letters from him and MK is quite familiar, of course, with all this, all I thought was, hey, he's talking about an image I hadn't seen. I want to see it. And so for some reason, I kept feeling like, why aren't we being allowed to see this? So it's a little detective work on my part, to be quite honest.
Wow, it's a how did you get so far into kind of the hairs where you get every single detail?
It's all there. It's all there in some of those hazy, murky, crummy images. You just got to look through it and see it. I have a couple theories. Don't know if they're right. I thought when I came across this that it was going to be the all being process to restoring the Patterson film. It's not. This is just one image taken by one person.
Wow.
From the master copy. Is that right, MK?
That is correct.
Yeah. So I have some theories why it's this good, but it's clear that the people that were seeing this film back in the day saw this because they described it all. They said you could see down to the details of eyelashes. It's in Bruce Bonney's letter. MK and I have a copy. I want to see that. It's there. It's there.
Wow.
I got into lots of arguments about what you could and could not do with the Patterson film, to the point where there was a scientific paper even published. And I was looking at this. I said, look, guys, I don't care what you say I could or can or can't. I've already done it. So how did I do it? You need to be asking me how I did it, because something's wrong with your data. And they were saying, oh, it's only 1.8 millimeters. And I thought to myself, at what point in that film is it 1.8? Because it starts filling the whole frame and it ends being a little dot going off in the distance. They didn't even care. They were regurgitating something somebody else said. The guy that wrote the article was an invertebrate biologist. He knew nothing about photography. And he was just trying to get me to discourage me, get me to drop it. Now, when I got into these arguments, I decided to end the arguments. I put together an enlargement, and they said you could not enlarge it hardly at all because it would just fall to pieces. And I'll just show you this. Oh, let me get it straight. There we go. Going backwards there.
You can't get an image that big from a bad copy. It won't blow up. And in those pictures I sent you guys, there's one of me standing next to an 8-footer too. And it's clean.
It cannot,
you can't do that.
You cannot do that. They needed to ask how. Don't tell me that you couldn't. I already had. This goes back to the level of research that it takes to get to the deeper things of this film, because people had said all kinds of things about it, none with a view to helping the film. It's all, and you get a film where you can see the face and the teeth and the eyes and all of that, like Todd did there. You can identify that individual. You can tell what it is.
You can
now
tell
all
us,
of a sudden people are saying, it must be AI. It must be. It's not AI. It's just plain and simple photography. You can improve it. You can improve a photograph. You can rebalance it.
If I were to take, I'll jump in, sorry, MK, but if I were to take a picture of myself, which I've done, or family, or Brian, or Daniel, MK, you, an old fuzzy picture of some school picture or something you've taken, and that's not good quality. And then I handed it back and it's clear, and you look all beautiful. You're not going to say, that's not me. That's not me. It doesn't look like me at all. That's me. Yeah, sure. But when you look at the fade in and fade outs on the overlays of the Patterson film, because you've never had a reference point before, the new reference point has been established. I was reading some of the questions that you guys had before we started. We were backstage and I was on Facebook. I saw people were asking stuff about Brian, and I noticed there's a lot of question about something that people think they know a lot about because it's old technology, and that's understandable, but they've never actually seen or put their hands on, and that's this baby. This is the same make, model, and camera that they sold or in the day, and how it came configured. Most people think this is the lens that Roger used. It said that's what he used, but this bad boy came with it too. That's just one point. And I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong, but it's just things people need to understand. And in a heated moment like that they were in when they came upon this, man, some of those details get kind of shifted. If you've ever had something happen just unexpected, it's not always, you're not always super clear. This is the frames per second setting, and it's set to 16. And I want you to hear what it sounds like. Hear that? Hear that? Now people say, you can't, I want to show you something. You can't, this doesn't move. It's set. It's very tight. The next setting up would be 24. And let me show you that, how it sounds. See, we've modulated up a key almost. Anybody that's familiar at all with shooting one, just if thinking about the sound, say, oh, that was on 16. Because it's a much lower. Also, this is an interesting feature to this camera. It comes with a pistol grip, and I have that, but for the sake of all this, look at this feature. This is the trigger, and I don't know if you can hear this. It's an individual single shot camera that you can stick 400 feet rolls of film in and shoot thousands and thousands of individual frames. We called that 110 in the 70s. There was a surgence of this type of film for people. Then you can push it down and have it run. And if you're to start to do this, it's probably easier just lock it in. And there's a debate if he let on the trigger, he let off the trigger. I don't know, because when you actually get your hands on it, start thinking about running with one and, doing all that, it may just got locked. I don't know, but it's something I wanted people to see. And hey, go to eBay, folks. They're still out there. Buy them. It'll make mine a lot more valuable. So anyway, that's what it is.
Brian, you can agree with me with this. I've never seen one like that, and I've never actually seen how it would work back then. Have you?
Yeah, that's a great demonstration because there's so much that goes into how the film was captured and what they used. It's great to see that in real life and even get to hear the noises and how it actually worked because, again, there's so much subjective things out there. People, they think they know a lot more in most cases than they actually do. So a little bit of education on the camera is fantastic.
Well, real fast. It's got a hand crank to power it up that you turn over and wind, and then you put it back into position. So it does not need electronics. However, people say that's not electronic. There is a tiny battery in here for a light meter, but the battery doesn't even need to be in the camera for it to run. You just have to know from experience how to set your aperture, whatnot, and you're in.
But that's the only camera that Patterson had. He had two cameras.
Correct. That's right.
He had a Bolex, which is a much more professional type camera.
For real.
Yeah, the Bolex was capable of sound, and the K100 would actually, when it was wound tight, it would run a little fast. And then as it ran down, the frames per second would drop back.
It drifted.
It was an amateur's camera. The Bolex, not so. The Bolex was a really good camera, quality camera.
Better springs, such.
Yeah.
Clearly, we're looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but it looks like we're looking at what Daniel pulled up earlier was frame 352. And it's not just the face. You guys have the full, everything is crystal clear when we pull up these other images. Let's talk a little bit about that. Do you have all of the frames from that entire, 50, 60 seconds of the film to work with, where you're able to go through and do this same process with every single frame that we're normally used to seeing of Patty on the sandbar? And there's a second part to that question. If that's the case, MK and or Todd, both, have you found anything that's, I already know the answer to this, but let's talk about what else you found when you've been able to do these images the way that you've done them and we've frankly never seen before. Have you found anything else that stuck out to you about the film that we weren't able to see before? I don't know who wants to start that. Maybe MK, if you want to take both parts of that, and then maybe Todd could chime in.
Yeah, I'm using my laptop, so I'm not hooked up to my big hard drive, but I've got a jump drive in there with some presentation material on it. I can use images and talk, or I can talk and use images. Images is what I've dealt with all these years. I don't like to just talk. I like people to see it. Hold on here just a minute. Let me go over here.
By the way, while he's doing that, I'll say MK is the world's foremost expert on this film, just bar none.
Wow.
Everybody else is a duffer, and me too. I consider myself just a duffer. He's handled and seen more copies and has copies. I would have never imagined myself to be in this position, to be able to work with him. And then through doing so, the owners of the actual master copy out of Rogers camera, which are friends with MK, and through the introductions of MK to them, I'm able to archive that, and that'll be forthcoming to the world. So there's new exciting things. Some things have been seen. People will see things. They'll see whatever. They see a man with a mustache in her eye on that portrait, which I never saw until I looked at it, and I thought, it's just a glossy reflection. But will they see things? MK has done this for decades, and he's got a lot of videos. Are you ready, MK?
Yeah. Can I share?
Please go do it.
Okay, let me get over here. This right here is, we're talking about quality of the film. Now, this is not off the master, but it is off a fairly good copy. It may have a few of the problems that when you copy like that, you create halos and murk, and you lose color and all of those things that diminish. But you're able to regain by treating each frame individually back to a pretty good level of quality, and then you put them together and stabilize them where it stays right dead center. and you can see the muscles moving right under the right shoulder. See up and down as she rocks back and forth. And the glutes or the buttocks, you can see that each individual side moves independently from each other. And like I was saying, that's been a major bone of contention down through the years because people said they looked to them like it was a pillow in a suit, but they just didn't have anything to look at. If people give you, it's garbage in, garbage out. So you have to have better image quality. And that's what I worked on for the early days, is obtaining better images. So then I thought that the film would tell its own story. You can also see that it's got a hair arrangement. You can see a streak of black hair and coming down and to the back between the shoulders there. All of that showed very plainly. And each and every time that I said I saw something new, people just raised all kind of cane. And I said that she fell over at the end of the first walk sequence. And this guy says, "What?" He says, "I have a copy of that film and it's not on there anywhere." And he goes and gets out his copy and he does a 1 frame by 1 frame. When he gets to that part, he emails me back and says she fell over. But he'd never seen it before. He never had the film stabilized. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So a cinema is also a little different than a still picture in the fact that it's accumulative. You have the previous frame in your brain at the same time you're watching the next frame. And they all tend to accumulate, and the quality does. So if you have 2 or 3 bad frames and 8 or 10 good frames, the overall quality is going to be better because those good ones are in there embedded. Your mind's going to average them out. You're going to have an average quality. Knowing that, I pieced together or put together with a lot of labor, stretches of the film that had the best quality, but I did not leave any frames out. If I had a stretched frame or smeared frame, it was put in there because your mind and your eye will accommodate for it. It will bring it up to the level of those good ones.
MK, they were asking about things people have seen in the film or maybe you've spotted. And I thought it was brilliant. MK spotted what he believes to be, and I think, a parfleche.
I don't know that I have anything on that, though. I have to look and see.
Okay. A parfleche is a Native American medicine bag.
Yeah, there's several types of parfleches.
Mm-hmm.
The most common is just like a piece of leather that's just folded over your stuff. You tie it off or tie it up with something, and you just carry it. I don't know that I have.
Whilst you're doing that, MK, guys, this interview has been honestly interesting, and I think myself and Brian have both sat here and let you guys just talk, and it's been incredible. Honestly, I've never spoken properly about the Patterson Gimlin film on Natural Podcast. I don't know about Brian, but I haven't gone into proper detail of kind of frames, and it's incredible to see and hear.
Thank you. It's
incredible
to be here with you.
It is. Y'all see the buttocks in these particular frames? This is early part of the film. You can see where they're divided into 2 halves, and that she's wore the hair off, and that just tells you that she's living somewhere where she sits down a lot, and maybe under an overhang or in a cave or something like that. People objected to it. All the time they were objecting, it was on the film the whole time. Here's some arm, left hand opening and closing because they said it was a suit and they were wearing extenders to make the arms longer. We'll just take a look at this. Look at the left hand. See, opening, close. Frame 353 and 352 stabilized on this wrist. That's a real hand. That's not a glove. It's not prosthetic. Let's see. Here's a breast movement. No, that's the thumb. I got the wrong one. See the thumb? The left thumb moving? Real stuff. Real deal. Now, let me find the breast, if I can find it. Moving, breast bouncing. I'll try this one. This is a GIF image, so I will have to copy it and paste it. Or either, let's see. Here we go. There we go. Hold it. You see the one on the inside? See it bouncing? And they have the density of about water. There's a lag time from the time she takes her step until the bounce occurs. So it's about what you would expect it if it were full of water.
That's just incredible. That's just incredible. I'm literally sat here going, it's just mad, you guys. You've done so well. Well done.
Daniel, can you pull up that one that I sent you? It says 352 zoom, no outline.
Okay.
When we get to it.
Okay.
That's the clarity of the film. Yeah, that's the clarity of the film. Look at the stump. The problems I have with this is the clear goes to blur, goes to clear, goes to blur. And that to me was a big something's going on. So that's another podcast, but that's what, if you zoom in on what we've done, our work, that's how clear you can get her. Look at her fur. Look at her calf. Her lips are pursed, making a hoo sound.
Yeah.
So
I looked through these kind of photos before we jumped on, and both me and Brian were absolutely bursting to do this interview with you, weren't we, Brian? It's just something that we're passionate about. That having someone that knows a lot about the Patterson Gimlin film is just amazing. And guys, this has been amazing. Sat here for 48 minutes is incredible, and time's gone so fast that it's just gone. And I will say, I will be having you guys back on very soon to go through the rest, because there's so many other pictures here.
There's a large catalog. There's no reason, no excuse, or no reason why this film has not been accepted as authentic. It's beyond me. I feel like it's a failure. Science in them has failed the people who pay them. You don't have that right to withhold. You can't say, shut this off. We don't want to look at it again. You can't do that. Not and remain employed, except that they did do it.
And to everyone that is viewing, I hope that you have loved this podcast, because I say I've loved it myself. And Brian, can you agree with me that this podcast has been incredible?
Yes, and I'm already looking forward to round 2.
So, guys, MK Davis, Todd Gatewood, thank you so much for being with us this evening, or this evening, Mike. Yes. So, guys, don't forget to go and check these guys out. Go and friend them on Facebook. Go and check their work out, because it is honestly incredible. Guys, do you have any last words to say?
Yeah, a lot of images can be seen at my WordPress site, the davisreport.wordpress.com. So if you want to go see more, there's a lot. Just click on the images and they'll just fire right off.
Yeah.
I say go to MK's page too. Go to his page. I have no page, no channels, no books. My dog has a Facebook page, but thank you.
Amazing.
And I'm always willing to talk to someone.
Amazing. Okay, guys, keep searching, stay mythical. Don't forget to subscribe and like us. Thank you so much, and I shall speak to you all soon.